The sci-fi horror movie, No One Will Save You, the most recent feature from Brian Duffield, has a lot of potential. Bryn, Caitlin Dever, is cut off from her neighborhood. She works on trinkets, cooks, and dances by herself at home all day. However, this peaceful life appears to be upended when an unearthly creature breaks into her home, forcing her to face her history and the reasons behind her solitude as she tries to flee. The originality of No One Will Save You's fundamental choices is its greatest asset. One line of understandable conversation appears in the entire movie, which is entirely sound-based. The first act centers on the invasion itself and uses diegetic sound to create a great deal of anxiety. Dial tones and a subtle creak in the floorboards are everyday things that Bryn hears as she stealthily moves through her house trying to avoid the extraterrestrial. Because of Bryn's brilliance, this sequence is even more compelling. She plays each move deliberately, strategically, and intelligently. She retaliates. She is a heroine you should support rather than laugh at. Duffield, meanwhile, masterfully exploits the design of the mansion to arouse dread and heighten anxiety. The lovely whimsy of the house we have grown accustomed to in the daytime transforms into a sickening sense of dread, from the inventive use of crevices and crannies to eerie, distorted shadows through hammered glass. While these components are useful, the longer the picture lasts, the more the scenario deviates from its splendor at the beginning. The extraterrestrial is first used in kitschy ways in Duffield's picture, which wastes excellent potential for scares and turns dread into apathy. As No One Will Save You continues to suffer from a maddening lack of narrative context, the opening sequences of the first act are by far the strongest parts of the movie overall. Lost reasons that have long since eluded the spectator, Bryn's community shuns her while she grieves lost her mother. She is forced to cross her property boundary by the invasion, which makes her feel a primordial urge to flee the frigid surroundings. And while it is clear that it is upsetting for her, there is no explanation provided for why this may be the case. Because it doesn't center on her, the script lacks the finesse to elicit sympathy and involvement in her suffering. Instead, it drags out a series of confusing cat and mouse capture, release, and recapture scenarios. The picture by Duffield lacks a solid foundation and perplexity at the implied horror. Social alienation, unresolved trauma, and the issue of redemption are barely mentioned in the midst of the film's disorganized cacophony of tiresome sequences. You beg, No One Will Save You, to ramp up the pace since it is a slow burn. Dever, who performs totally physically, is the spine of the movie. She carries the emotion entirely in her body and the subtle changes in her expressions because she lacks the words to describe it. Unfortunately, despite the fact that we can read and feel what she says, the offensive, repetitive alien sequences that undermine the film's desperate emotions come first. The film's execution undercuts both the noteworthy creative goals and Dever's outstanding performance. When any long overdue background is provided, it is too late and inefficient to have justified the wait. While No One Will Save You yearns to be an existential sci-fi adventure, it lacks the essential context and skill to clinch the heart. The rest of the runtime loses the inventiveness of the inciting occurrence.